From medical products to cosmetics, clothes, and even food, bioindustry has become one of the essential industries in our daily lives. The global society has had a fierce competition to take a leading role in the biotech industry, one of the rising higher value-added businesses. And Korea has also put a lot of efforts to bolster the nation's biotech industry. On today's Upfront, we discuss the current status of Korea's bio industry and ways to achieve a leading position in the field.
A Korean pharmaceutical company received U.S. FDA approval for its biosimilar drug, a first in the global pharmaceutical field. The global bioindustry market has paid attention to Korea, along with a Korean company's advancement into the U.S. market. Bioindustry refers to an industry that makes use of biology itself or biotechnology in the creation or alteration of life forms or processes. Bioindustry has been closely connected to our daily lives. According to Korean Agency for Technology and Standards, bioindustry can be divided into 8 different fields, which include medicine, chemistry, food, and environment. Biomedicine is one of the fields that has been actively making use of the biotechnology, and that is because of the aging phenomenon facing the global society. The scale of the bioindustry is expected to germinate into a $427.3 billion industry by the year 2019. There has been a fierce competition among the companies in the field of bioindustry, as it has become a new growth engine that can help the global society escape from the era of low growth. And Korea has shown a remarkable growth in the field of biomedicine. Biosimilar create similar effect to the existing biomedicines with lower price. And there have been a lot of ongoing studies on BioBetter, the original biomedicine with advanced effect and increased amount of medication. The government has spearheaded efforts to boost bioindustry as part of an effort to promote the creative economy drive, one of the core strategies of the current administration. Active government support has been promoted in the field of research and development, as well as fostering human resources as part of an effort to make the country as one of the top 7 powerhouses in the field of bioindustry.
IT 산업의 성과에 안주하지 않고 바이오 의약품이라는 새로운 시장에 과감하게 뛰어든 도전과 혁신은 양질의 청년 일자리 창출과 전후방 산업의 동반 성장에도 크게 기여하게 될 것입니다.
The rise of bioindustry as the world's new driving force. Upfront discusses the future of bioindustry and strategies needed for Korea to be a dominant player.
To talk about this exciting subject matter, we're joined by great experts here in the studio. First, we're joined by Jerome Kim, currently the Director General of the International Vaccine Institute.
Morning.
And we're joined by Mook In-hee, Professor and Department Chair of Biochemistry at Seoul National University College of Medicine. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Let's start with the first question to you, Dr. Kim. Probably we should talk about the general concept of biotech and biotech industry. Some of the viewers might not be very familiar with the concept. So tell us, by way of brief introduction, what is a bioindustry?
So biotechnology is the harnessing of biological processes, products, or organisms for technologically useful purposes. Mm-hmm. And the biotech industry has been experiencing tremendous growth. I think market capitalization hit $1 trillion a year or so ago, and annual total world drug sales are in the $1 trillion range as well. Mm-hmm. So this is an area that is growing very quickly. Of the top 100 drugs, roughly 50 are derived from biotechnology processes. So again, there's a tremendous opportunity, tremendous growth, and a lot of excitement about initial public offerings and funding for research.
In terms of size, it's a tremendous size. I mean, if you talk about the global automobile industry, it's between 1 and 2 trillion. So if it got to 1 trillion with the growth factor, it's a tremendous growth.
It has a very unique opportunity for growth that is green and clean and intellectually on the cutting edge. So it has a tremendous opportunity for a place like Korea, which has a tremendous infrastructure for research and development.
I see. Professor Mook, what do you think? This is a very exciting prospect, especially for a country like Korea where there's a low growth and the job situation is not as good as before. So do you think this is a good growth engine that we can really vouch for?
Oh, yes. First of all, bioindustry is not familiar to common people, but it is impossible not to use bioindustry product in our lives, because bioindustry is biology plus product by biotechnology and other life science technologies. So, for example, we every day we use biomedical health product and healthcare services and food and environmental concerns. So bioindustry should be growing very quickly, and everybody love to involve in these processes. So it should be the growth engine for our countries.
You know, everybody, as in government and also the private sector, it seems.
Yes, you know, and I think one of the beauties of the biotechnology industry is that these are not low-paying, low-skilled jobs. These are jobs that carry significant salaries. They are very technologically innovative. They require good training, good education, enhanced skill sets, and not only that, but they're international. So that a person who does well in Korea could equally take that job skills somewhere else into a different research opportunity and potentially personally grow outside of Korea as well.
But it's not just one sector, isn't it? Bioindustry encompasses a lot of different sectors and different kind of branches. What are some, what is your way of kind of categorizing the bioindustry?
We can categorize with 4 parts: red, green, white, and fusion. These colors can be associated with our imagination. Red is blood, green is tree, white is the smoke from chimneys.
I see.
So red bio is medical and pharmaceutical field, and it can make various kind of medical product, drugs and others. And green bio include food and some functional health product. And white bio is energy and environmental field. It can provide replacement of oil-based energy by microorganisms and biodegradable polymers. Last one is fusion bio. It is unlimited and challenging for our new generation. It can make anything from 2 parts from biology and other advanced techniques.
I see.
So, for example, DNA sequencing analysis is the good example for fusion technology between pure biology and engineering. From that DNA analysis techniques, we can get a whole genome sequencing, and we can make some diagnosis from those sequencing data. Also, it can provide a target for treatment. So it is very valuable for our lives.
I see. Yeah. I see. This fusion idea seems very intriguing. I hear of the branch called the bioelectronics, bioequipment, and of course biofood and environment. It seems like it can fuse with a lot of different existing branches to make exciting products and industries.
Yes, people refer to the industrial revolutions, and biotechnology is at the verge of becoming the next industrial revolution. I mean, and as well as the things that Professor Mook mentioned, I mean, we have to think about the potential here for an interface between say, the human brain and things that it can do, and the different ways that biotechnology can enhance abilities that we no longer have. So in one of my previous jobs, I took care of soldiers who had limbs blown off during the war. To the extent that we can get bioelectronics to create new limbs that actually work, or use regenerative medicine to regenerate parts of the body that are no longer there, biotechnology, as it has this potential, again, has the opportunity to significantly change human life.
I see. I was going to ask you whether this is the next IT revolution, but you're saying next industrial revolution. It seems like it's so much bigger in terms of impact. Do you agree?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. OECD report in Bioeconomy 2030 tells us that fusion between biotechnology and other techniques lead us next generation, which is similar to IT power in economy before. So last few decades, IT lead our economy, but from now on, the bioindustry is the leading industry to survive our economy and growth our life.
I want to hear more about what kind of biotechnologies have impacted the industry, especially because we have two doctors here. Probably you can tell us more about your own field as well.
I'm working on Alzheimer's disease pathogenesis, and for last 20 years, we didn't know the reason why Alzheimer's disease occurred. But for basic research and biotechnology improvement, we have the clue to target the making drugs and also diagnosis field. So it is amazing because we can make disease-modifying drugs for incurable disease. So far, the symptomatic drugs are available for dementia people. But after that biotechnology is improved, we can make specific and very accurate target to make drugs.
How significant do you think it is, especially we have an aging population and probably the disease and curable medicine probably is a very important point that people take attention.
Because the average lifespan of human is increased, and also they are looking for the quality of life. So health and well-aging is important more and more.
Right.
To maintain quality of life, the various medical support and healthcare services are required. Since industry is dynamic and also need-based characters, medicine and pharmaceutical industry should be grown for the make a company benefit. Also, at the same time, our government support huge money for bio-industry, especially for biomedical field, because the people in the country wants to have high quality and well-aging lifestyles.
I see. You have devoted considerable part of your career to HIV virus, and also we're seeing a lot of diseases kind of attacking the humanity, like Zika virus is one example, and we hear periodically about the epidemics, impending epidemics, and they're happening around the world. So the development in the biotechnology probably should be a key to attacking or being kind of in the defending end.
Right, and in fact, Zika has been around for decades, and we are only aware of it now because we have enhanced ability to detect both new diseases and also to understand what the causative organisms are. And then, with a virus like Zika, to quickly sequence it, to identify what parts of the virus your body is attacking, and then design a vaccine that mimics those responses. It's our abilities now to do things with appropriate funding, of course,
Right.
are enormous.
I see. for this exciting field, who are some leading countries, maybe leading sectors that could be a model for others? Who are good at this?
U.S. is about half the entire bio industry
I see.
worldwide. Europe is the next. It is about 25%. Japan, Israel, and Australia are strong for bio industry. These days, China, we have to pay attention to China. China have very rapidly growing for bio industry. Our government should make a huge effort to compete with those countries because those bio industry is very important to make leading our economy. So in our case, our manpower and brains are great in Korea. So we should make some human training system for bio industry is very urgently needed from government and some institution-wide. Lastly, certain favors to attract private sectors should be studied for bio industry, including mitigation of regulation in law. The private sector has many economic and funding power, and also they can make a product directly. So private sector should involved in those biotechnology development.
I see. I see. We've discussed a lot of different sectors of the bio industry, and as I mentioned in the opening, there is a Korean company which has developed a biosimilar drug and received the US FDA approval for the first time in the field of biosimilar medicine. And we had a chance to hear more about this when we met the CEO of this company that has contributed to the development of the domestic bio industry.
Celltrion's biosimilar Remsima won the final approval from the FDA, and it's the first biosimilar antibody to be approved by the US FDA. Such a remarkable achievement made by a Korean company in the field of biosimilar antibody, which requires a high level of technology, shows the strength and status of Korea's biotechnology within the global society. The US is one of the big players in the antibody drug market, as it takes up about half the entire market. And Korea has gained a great chance to advance into such a huge market. Lastly, antibody drugs usually show great effects, but they're expensive. So development of biosimilar, which is a copy of an original product, can be an opportunity to offer drugs to more patients at a lower cost. Our company has tried to understand the trend of the pharmaceutical field in the near future. There are two reasons why we developed a biosimilar drug. First, patents for many branded biologics have been expired since 2010, so we didn't want to miss that timing. Second, the aging phenomenon has been one of the biggest challenges facing the global society. In that way, healthcare spending per person will increase as different kinds of diseases will appear. That means governments and insurance companies might shoulder a heavy financial burden. So we thought that if we develop a biosimilar drug and offer drugs at a lower price, then it can contribute to tackling those challenges, and the market can also achieve a great growth. That's why we decided to develop a biosimilar drug. It might sound like a reckless plan, but we should have more business startups with an entrepreneurial spirit. People who can make use of biotechnologies can develop the necessary sources at the initial stage of the development process. Second, financial markets should provide enough funds for the businesses to develop the product. And the bio industry should achieve a great growth so that it can attract a huge amount of investment in the field of research and development. When we build an ecosystem that many businessmen can bring in a lot of advanced technologies to develop biomedicines and commercialize those products after going through clinical experiments, Korea's bio industry can achieve a greater growth in the near future.
Let's discuss more about the medical and pharmaceutical field, which are probably the Korea's bio industry kind of achievement so far. And as we just saw in the interview, the biosimilar products have been making news recently. A biosimilar, of course, is like a generic drug in the chemical sector where if you have an existing drug and the patent is expired, then you can make the same kind of drug with biotech technology, I guess. So what do you think about this development? Why has the biosimilar product been developed in the first place?
Biosimilar is a similar product to original. Efficacy is the same, but price is lower than original. Advantage of biosimilar is 1/10 of developmental cost and half of developmental time, and 10 times of success rate compared to the generic synthetic drugs. So it can be sold in lower price than original one, and patients prefer to using biosimilar due to lower cost. Also, the insurance system asks doctors to prescribe biosimilar due to lower price. Since biosimilar bioorganism and manufacturing process is complicated, dose and side effects are different from original. So it should go through preclinical and clinical trials. It can be good because it can be entry barriers from other countries. And the price of product is higher than synthetic drugs. So it is very comparable to develop biosimilar than other synthetic drugs.
I see. This is eerily kind of similar to the one we talked about. Just like the IT field, the patent and the intellectual property is very important and is an important asset for a company. Do you think that the similarity?
So with the biosimilars, though, you wait until the patents expire, typically. Right. Because of the reasons that Professor Mook gave, which are related to the costs of developing new drugs and new biosimilars, many companies prefer initially to pursue a path that looks to biosimilars, which are a very lucrative market. If you look at the drugs that biosimilars are being made to copy, they represent billions of dollars of sales annually. If you look in the top 10, those things that Celltrion and Samsung have targeted are bringing in billions of dollars of revenue for those companies. In the end, the biosimilars market will be like the vaccines market or the drugs market. There will be competition. I think you mentioned China. India is already the largest manufacturer of vaccines for global health. 2/3 of the vaccines, for instance, are manufactured in India, and Indian companies are looking at biosimilars also. So I think, Korea has some advantages. It has a very well-educated and well-developed workforce. It has research and development infrastructure. It has some government facilitation of opportunity. And all those things need to be reinforced. I think biosimilars are an important market, but also I think we can't forget that you're training a generation of young scientists, and these are young scientists who will want to innovate. And although innovation carries greater risk and greater cost, it also, if you had 17 years of an unrestricted patent to make a new drug at 12, between $1 and $10 billion a year, you gain a tremendous advantage.
Right.
So again, innovation is more difficult, but ultimately I think as Samsung and other successful Korean companies are doing, they're innovating. They're not copying. So I think biosimilars are an important step. They're a good profit margin. They're a good way to get a foothold in the industry, and ultimately I think as it has it with its other mature industries, Korea will innovate and will develop new products.
I see. With that advantages, I would think that because we talked about the aging population, government probably already has a very big interest in lowering the expenditure on the aid in medicines. So if the financial pinch is one of the concerns, probably they would want the biosimilar product, which is lower in cost than the original drugs, to be more readily available to people so that they can have an impact of lowering the government expenditure as well. Do you think the government will do something about those aspects?
I totally agree with you. But as Dr. Kim mentioned, the original pattern is very important. Innovation and pattern issues are very important because similar is a copy of original pattern, right? Or original things.
Right.
So pattern is power of company, also the country. So it is direct connection to company's benefit, also country's benefits. So there are about 2,000 cases for patent suit in US of 2015. So it is very important to manage patent application and registration. So government should pay attention to innovation for source of technology to make an original pattern. Also, everybody has made an effort for about patent governance to manage those things.
Professor Mook, what do you think is a strength and also maybe a weakness of Korean companies or the Korean environment in terms of biotech industry?
In general, one problem of Korea in the past was the lack of professional patent lawyers and governance to manage those patent systems. For example, one patent lawyer has a strong specialty for like biosimilar, etc. But these days, it is starting to have a specialty for patent lawyers. Also, it can be internationally active patent lawyers we required. So otherwise, it is very difficult to compete with global pharmaceutical companies, and we have leading country for bio industry.
So this industry has an impact on, I'm a law school professor, so it's good to hear that this intellectual property has a job creating opportunity for the young budding lawyers. What kind of development do you expect to see in the future in terms of biotech industry impacting other industries?
So actually, I think the biotech industry, and this is something that we face in vaccines all the time. You know, when you look at Asia, other than the developed economies like Korea and Japan, you have a huge emerging group of middle-income countries. Their population is in the hundreds of millions. So Korea itself is a very small market, but Asia, Thailand, you know, Vietnam, Indonesia are a tremendous market. And if things were to change a bit in China and Korean companies could more readily export their biosimilars or their products to China, then again, that is a very, very large market. And so I think there's an opportunity here for both Korean drug manufacturers, vaccine manufacturers, and others, but also companies that supply them. So no industry exists in isolation.
Right.
The drug industry depends critically on other industries. For instance, there are certain things that you need, certain chemicals, certain reagents, certain supplies. So there's always a spin-off effect. And I think you see that in other industries as well. You know, the car industry not only makes cars, but it needs steel and rubber and plastics. So again, I think there is an opportunity for multiple sectors to be impacted. And let's not forget the biggest sector. I mean, Korea generates a huge number of highly educated scientists.
Right.
And there's productive employment for those scientists. There are positions overseas in Korean companies that are marketing abroad. There again, you're exporting not only a good, but you're exporting jobs and capabilities, and you're pulling educated people out of the universities and giving them meaningful and high-paying jobs.
Even with the biosimilar industry, it seems like lifting up the web where you lift up one part of it, but everything else kind of raised.
Correct. It's like a rising tide. All the boats go
Right.
up.
Right. Now, biosimilar is one thing, but as you pointed out, the biosimilar product is a copy of the existing product, which means we need new drugs to be developed on a continuous basis. So maybe a little bit different from biosimilar sector in terms of developing new drugs and new technologies. Do you think that Korea has, what's the status of Korea in terms of that field?
I think our country is still in its infant status, because government and private sector made an effort from several years ago. But the term of development of new drugs or original source technology takes a long time than we expected.
I see.
So we have to wait those results with patience and trust. Otherwise, it is hard to get the good result from short investment. Mm-hmm. So it is a very important factor to persuade government to support for a long time.
I see.
And I think one of the key elements here is risk. Companies, global pharmaceutical companies in particular, have been investing significantly in research and development. But a lot of this is built upon research, basic research, that was funded by the US government, by the European governments, now by the Korean government, because we need to generate ideas. And so a lot of what we see, one of the biggest selling biotechnologies is a monoclonal antibody or something that prevents tumor blood vessels from growing into tumors. That came directly out of research funded by the U.S. National Institutes of Health. And when we look at the biosimilars, all of these are based on research that came out of research that only a government can fund, out of a great diversity of ideas and generation of new technologies and capabilities. And so that's one part. I mean, the government needs to continue to, if not fund, but increase funding for that kind of research. And for the Korean government, of course, there would be researching aging because its population is aging. Right. The other thing is, and I think you addressed this in part, Professor Mook, is not only patience, but there has to be a tolerance for failure. I think we look at failure as just the lack of success, but in fact, it means that people are trying. And I think there are some Korean companies that are very risk averse. And that risk aversion keeps you from making the kinds of investments that you need in order to innovate, because when you innovate, you will fail. Right. I mean, I think the history of inventors and inventions is that they try and fail, but they get the big payoff, the big benefit when they try and succeed. I mean, they never stop trying. And so I think one of the things that I don't know how you educate someone to take risks. Right. Or, I mean, moderate risk, measured risk, but to encourage them and to support them in case they fail. It might be an equally important part of how we educate and how the government develops programs around cutting-edge technologies.
Right. This is a good time to get a kind of industry perspective. We discussed the outlook for Korea's bioindustry in the global market. And to hear more about it, we had a chance to meet Seo Jung-sun, president of Korea Biotechnology Industry Organization.
한국의 바이오 산업은
First of all, Korea has an advanced medical technology. Even patients from overseas countries have visited Korea for treatment. Such a remarkable growth of Korea's medical technology has been widely known in the global society. Korea has focused on research and development of a variety of different medical technologies, and it has enabled Korea to have such a world-class medical technology. And it can be a great foundation for the country's bioindustry as well. Another success factor is advanced information technology. Korea has successfully established a network between IT and other fields, and the international community has especially paid attention to the combination between IT and the bioindustry among different forms of technological convergences.
지금까지 어떤
Of course, the development of new medical products is important, but it's also important to boost the country's bio-industry by combining it with other fields, including medicine and tourism, which are already advanced industrial areas of Korea. This will bring about an innovative change in the future bio-industry of Korea. The global bio-industry has faced a fierce competition, and trilateral cooperation between Korea, China, and Japan in the field of global bio-industry will also create a great synergy effect. Education and business startups are the most significant factors in developing the biotechnology. We should put more efforts on fostering human resources in the related fields, as bioindustry is one of the emerging technology-intensive industries, and enough financial resources are required for the research and development, as well as the management of the bioindustry. We should attract more investment and promote deregulation in order to boost the new business startups in the field of bioindustry. And proper institutional strategies are needed in cases of failure. In that way, Korea can become a dominant player in the field of global bioindustry.
Let's talk about the remaining challenges for Korea biotech industry. One of the criticisms we hear is that the return on investment is pretty low in Korea. As we pointed out, that the government has put tremendous efforts and also funding into this field, but it seems like it has not really taken off in a major way. Probably you can diagnose this problem first.
Korea is top country to allocate R&D budget compared to GDP, and it's unbelievable because it is more percentage of R&D budget than US, Japan, and other countries.
I see.
But what is the problem then? Then first, I think a governance for R&D budget from government should be changed. They should give the freedom for research, subject after funding. Scientists are very creative and made a huge effort to make an innovative result. Biosystem is also very flexible and dynamic. So we don't know when we start a research project, we cannot imagine exact outcome from the project. The goal for project must be open at the evaluation stage. So in that case, scientists can be more flexible to make an innovative product. But these days, our government can control everything. So we have to fit the goal when we start the project. So that's the limitation to make a huge jump for innovative research. And second one is culture of collaboration. So the culture of collaboration is very limited in Korea. I think it's because of not trained in that way. And also, we don't have that much trust for each others, especially the parent programs and some culture to share our ideas and have some fairness profit for each others. So they communicate each other every time to have more synergistic result with fairness profit.
I see.
I think, in terms of return on equity, I think Korean scientists, like scientists everywhere, can be shaped by the requirements the government puts on them. So if the government rewards papers, Korean scientists will write a lot of papers.
Right.
If the government rewards patents, you'll see a lot of patents, but not all, many patents never go anywhere. If the government, but what is the government expecting in terms of return on its investment? If you're talking to an academic, it's getting things to the point where potentially a company or some other organization will then pick it up and move it into a product or something new and innovative. But it's the metrics that are used that may not be appropriate for determining the true return on investment. When you look at President Nixon declared the war on cancer and greatly increased funding for the U.S. National Cancer Institute in the late 1960s. And now we're beginning to see the benefit. So when you think about the benefit for biology, it's very long term. I mean, when you think about the drug development time for a new vaccine, it could be on the order of 10 years, a decade. $1 billion, according to the drug companies, is what it costs to move a product to, from the laboratory into marketing. And so these development times are slightly different than what you'd expect for the, say, 2 or 3 year turnaround time for new models for cars, or the next version of the Samsung, phone. But this reflects the reality of doing something in a highly regulated environment. You wouldn't want someone to get a vaccine that was dangerous or that didn't work. And actually, there's a Korean company, and this just gets to an amazing story. That was trying to develop a vaccine business from scratch. Within 5 years, they had a licensed vaccine. Everyone is amazed that this company was able to get
in 5 years.
In 5 years, to start from scratch and to actually get a licensed, Ministry of Food and Drug Safety licensed vaccine in 5 years.
I see.
In the West, in the U.S. or in Europe, that would not happen. So again, you do see accelerated schedules in Korea because of the workforce, the ethic, the knowledge of the business and what is required in order to get something done and get it approved. But we're still looking at timelines. I mean, 5 years is a long time. I mean, if you, in many industries, that would be the entire life cycle of a product or a new product. But for vaccines, it's par for the course.
That's a very interesting dilemma, I think. That the FDA is known for very strict rules and very strict procedure for its approval. So in a sense that it's safer that way, probably looking into the many different aspects. But the speed of it probably, as you said, if you can do it in 5 years, that would be more beneficial to many different sectors. So you have to always kind of balance these two. But Professor Mook, what do you think about the overall safety concerns, maybe side effects? If you hurry it, maybe it's good for some businesses, but it might be dangerous to the populace?
Safety issues are most important things for drug development. There are several steps to monitor drug development process. First is IRB, Institutional Review Board, also known as the ERB, Ethical Review Board. It is institutional committee to approve, monitor, and review biomedical and behavioral research for human subjects. The purpose of IRB is to assure that appropriate steps are taken to protect the right and welfare of human participating as subject in a research study. Second one is IND filing, investigational new drug program before they enter a phase 1 clinical trials. The FDA reviews those IND applications for safety to assure research subject will treat without unreasonable risk. Overall, from the beginning for the research to clinical trials, several steps monitor those systems from institution and governmental system. So safety issues are well concerned and controlled, I think.
What about, maybe we can go into the ethical aspect as well, but please comment first, safety concerns.
We deal with the timelines of ethical approval and regulatory approval on a daily basis at where I work. Because as vaccines are going through, we have to make sure that they're safe. I mean, remember, for instance, vaccines are given to people who are healthy to prevent illness. So really, they have an even higher bar for safety because you don't want people to suffer unfortunate consequences. And the impact of even a rumor or can have dramatic impact on the acceptability of a vaccine. So, the link with autism really did, although it's now been shown to be false, really did start, or give strength to a movement that opposes vaccination, even for public health reasons, and resulted in things like the huge measles outbreak that the U.S. had a couple of years ago. So we have to make sure that the vaccines that we use, that the biologics that are invented, the biosimilars, have defined action and safety. And the other aspect is ethical review. And the U.S. has some very famous cases of people who were experimented on and had no knowledge of it. So the Institutional Review Board's job is really a critical one. And as for instance, as the head of an institute, I back up the Institutional Review Board on most questions because when it comes to ethics, you can invalidate a $20 million trial or a $100 million trial if you haven't done the ethics properly, if you haven't protected human subjects. And there are both national and international requirements for the conduct of clinical trials in humans. And then as we get into special populations, like doing work on prisoners, working with children, and we have to follow an even stricter set of guidelines for good reason. I mean, these are groups that might be subject to coercion or would not be able to make their decision on their own, and we have to be very careful.
This is a very interesting subject. For example, this is a doomsday scenario, but not even those bad scientists or evil scientists, but the corporations many of them who would move their central office to take advantage of the low tax regime, right? If they elect to move to a location or jurisdiction where those kind of monitoring or the auditing is less than others, probably there might be a danger that ethically they might be complying with all the laws in a local jurisdictions, but there might be kind of more danger.
It's true.
In an ethical sense.
I think, though, that ethically, one of the principles is that the site of the clinical trial should have strong ethical review. So if we could, even if we're working in Korea, if we conduct a trial in the Philippines or Nigeria, we have to make sure that those ethical review boards in those countries meet the minimum set of requirements necessary, and they actually can be approved by certain international organizations that review institutional review boards. We really want to make sure that our partners have the capability, and actually in my old program, we actually worked to strengthen the institutional review boards to make sure that they got to conferences, that they were current on the most recent developments in human ethical review, because again, there are even simple questions that we are not. So for instance, we've done trials in the early 1990s or in the late 1980s and collected human samples. And in those days, we had permission to collect those samples, and we told them that we would save it. These days, typically, we have to specify, and we have to let the person know, and we have to get their approval to retain the specimen. And then if, say, all of a sudden I want to look for Zika virus in a sample that was collected in 1990 before it was really even a concern, I have to look back through my ethical review form to make sure that I said, and we may do future trials on your sample.
I see.
So these weren't concerns 20 years ago. They are now. And so, new ethics is moving forward, and we have to keep track of developments, and we have to be able to accommodate them as we do research.
Right. This is a very interesting and also difficult subject matters. We see these articles about CRISPR or the Cas9 technologies. So some scientists want to stop it altogether because it encroaches upon, some people would say, God's domain, or some people would say, even without talking about the religious the concerns, they would say we have not studied or we don't know enough of what kind of impact it has on the human beings in genetics. So this is an ongoing discussion, and I don't know if any government or any the international body has any definitive answer how to regulate this kind of matters.
Yeah, those genome editing and embryonic stem cell study are great for basic research, and it can change many things. When we try with both techniques for animals, and then we can see very fantastic result with those genome editing and embryonic stem cell study. But the Dr. David Baltimore, who is a Nobel laureate, he said it is time to think carefully about the use of genome editing and embryonic stem cell study. So in California, only California can support those stem cell study, but in huge U.S. government is reluctant to support those stem cell study.
Right.
But for genome editing, for the basic research, they are very supportive to do more about genome editing. But we should think about ethical issues for using those both techniques.
I see. It's a very interesting ongoing discussion.
There are international, so for instance, for conduct of clinical trials, there are international guidelines that many countries agree to and have signed an agreement, the International Committee on Harmonization, that makes it easier for us to do clinical trials of a certain quality no matter where we operate in the world, and makes it easier for other countries to accept information from those clinical trials. A similar thing will probably need to be done as we develop more thinking around these genetic modification technologies. I know there's a U.S. presidential panel on ethics, and they deal with this question and questions like this on a recurrent basis, and will actually have issued white papers on what they consider to be acceptable. Now, it doesn't necessarily have the force of law, and so, in pluralistic societies and democratic societies, then the individual people, lawmakers, ethicists, other people in government will have to come up with a series of rules and regulations that scientists should follow.
Right. We're almost out of time, but I would like to invite each panel members to have a word of advice for the Korea's bio industry to have balanced growth for ethical concerns and also the growth.
To success bio industry in Korea, technology innovation and continuous supply of manpower are very important factors. So government and private sector and ourselves should make an effort to continue those balance between technology innovation and ethical issues. Both factors can be possible on the big future plan for biotechnology from government and private sectors. So all of us make wishes to have good result as a leading part to make our country has benefit. So I'm positive to have good hope for our biotechnology and our country.
I see. Dr. Kim, you have the last word.
All right, thank you. So I think that the key here, as Professor Mook has already suggested, is it starts with education. It proceeds to innovation, which is discovery. It goes to translation, which is taking that discovery and turning it into something that is useful technology. And finally, it gets to the final stage, which requires facilitation. Having technological infrastructure, having manufacturing infrastructure, having marketing infrastructure, and to some extent, the government does or should facilitate at each of these steps in order to create something that is systematic, uniform, and creates something of value for the country.
I see. On that note, I thank you for your valuable insight discussion today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bioindustry, despite controversies, could open up healthier and more sustainable future for humanity, while providing a valuable growth engine for countries like Korea with its strength in science and technology. Especially for many young people, this could be their future. Government and businesses should make it easier for them to succeed for their sake and ours. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.